Hey guys, how's it going? Quick introduction. I mostly play best of three arena drafts. Um, Normally I hover recently around about like 80% win rate, so like Strixhaven was pretty rough for me actually at the beginning. And at the end I kind of figured it out a bit more. Had some nice runs and ended up about 79. Uh, AFR, pretty consistent throughout, about a little around 81. And Midnight Hunt started out kind of rough for me, few 2-1s, but since then I've been on a pretty fortunate run. And yeah, having a pretty good set so far. So I recently had a draft that was really interesting. It was kind of started off looking like it was going to be quite the train wreck. And I thought it might be useful to some people to see kind of how to navigate drafts like that. And also to get other people's input because I'm sure I made plenty of mistakes myself. But yeah, so let's go ahead and jump into it. So I think 17 lands got a little, or it's a little bugged, but I still have the full pack here for pick one. This one, I think that Light Up the Night is the best card from here, but I'm not entirely sold on red. I've recently been coming around to the idea that it's better than I gave it credit for. I've seen a lot of people playing the spells decks and things like this, but here I ended up going with the Clear Shot. I think it's just a good removal spell. It serves a role that green kind of needs in a lot of their decks since their removal isn't super great elsewise. Um, Commons, there's a Search Party Captain, which is pretty good, but I think not on the same level as Clear Shot. And I don't know, maybe Light Up the Night is correct, but my hesitancy to move into red and the fact this is the only green card had me go ahead and pick this one up. So here then in pack 2, not a lot for us. The Sacred Fire is a good card, but it's double color. I'm not in either color right now. And again, I have a little bit of an aversion to red, which I think was probably, again, I'm starting to come around a little bit more on. Had I been in red already, I think Festival Crasher is kind of where a lot of the red decks want to be at. But I think that Shipwreck Sifters has high enough upside that it's worth picking up here in another pack that otherwise doesn't have a whole lot for us. So I went ahead and went with this one. Then here, pick 3 is pretty interesting. Actually, to backtrack just a little bit, you can gain information for people that weren't aware from packs. So one thing I usually look at is what's missing. So here, all 3 uncommons and the rare here. So a common's missing, which suggests somewhat that someone to my right could be in like blue or black. I mean, it's not a sure thing, of course, but I think on average, the commons that you tend to take highly are often blue organ hoarders and like black removal spells, stuff like that. So, you can kind of gain some information. That's actually maybe a little bit of a deterrent from moving into blue, but it's pretty extremely minor. So again, I'm not putting too much stock into that quite yet. And then so here, something interesting to note is the rare is missing, but also notice there's no flip card from the uncommons and rare. So if you guys weren't aware, between the 3 uncommons and 1 rare, there's guaranteed to be 1 flip card, and same thing within the commons, there's guaranteed to be 1 flip card. So you can gain some information. For example, if you see an uncommon missing and you know that it's the flip card, I think white with like the farmhand, and then green has like a 3/3 werewolf that adds counters in like the 1/1 sprout guy, and then blue has some of the disturbed creatures are the most likely uncommon flip cards that could be taken. I don't think there's that much in black or red, so you can use that to kind of gain some information. Here there's a rare flip card, which honestly I haven't looked too much into, so I don't know what that tells me, but it's something nice to notice on some packs that's missing. And then another common here, it's kind of close. I mean, if I was on the red train, like I think Play with Fire is probably the best card here. And if I was willing to move into blue-black, which maybe I should have, I don't know, but the Scab is certainly a great card, of course. So on color, probably the best card, but also double color. And so I figured I would just kind of stay the course, pick up the green card. I already have a great green removal spell. I like Clear Shot a lot, so it seems like it'd be useful for us. But yeah, this one, tough pick for me. I'm really not sure, but typically I tend to draft fairly conservatively pack 1, where I try and kind of carve out my lane so that I if I open something really good in pack 2, then I don't have too much trouble moving into it. Yeah, moving on. Here, rare and uncommon and a common missing. And I think that not too much in our colors. I'm not really high on the spirit. This is a playable 2-drop, but it doesn't go in every deck, and it's not something I'm excited to take this early. So here I'm kind of speculating on the Diregraph Horde. I think it's just enough better than everything else in the pack that it justifies being picked, even though I'm not really near black, and I haven't really seen too much black. But we'll see where it leads. And here again, more difficult picks. Going into a 4th color is not something that I'm super enthusiastic about. But I don't know, like these cards, like Broodweaver, I think is fine sometimes, but it's not exciting. I don't actually know that I'm green yet. I just have this card that was my first pick, and then a sighting. Sentry again is a fine green card, but I'm not really entirely sold on it, and I've been really impressed with the Veteran recently. I think also from an archetype standpoint, the Veteran goes great in all the pairs, right? So it's great in white black, white green, and white blue from where I may end up. So on one hand, it's another color, but on the other hand, it goes into a lot of the archetypes that I was looking at, and I think it's the best card in the pack, so I went with it. And so here's an interesting one where we're completing the full 5 color, which pretty unusual for me, but I guess that's what makes this one an interesting one. So one thing that influenced this is that I remember I passed a Sacred Fire in I think it was the first pack. And typically I actually haven't worked out all the way if this is reasonable logic yet, but I was thinking that if this one made it to pick 6, so that means 5 people didn't take it, presumably the first maybe 2 or 3 people from the first pack aren't looking to move into red-white. And then if the next 5 people weren't interested in this the first time through, there's some likelihood that they wouldn't be interested in it the second time through. So to me, this represents a potential for a second Sacred Fire as well. I don't know if that's good reasoning or not, to be honest, but that was my thought process at the time. If I hadn't seen the first Sacred Fire, then I might just pick Silverbolt here, because usually when I'm kind of floundering a little bit, I like to pick cards that are guaranteed to at least be able to go into my deck, because sometimes you end up light on playables in situations like this. So I ended up just kind of taking a gamble on the Sacred Fire. I know that at least recently I've seen a lot of the good red-whites stuff wheeling, like specifically the 3/3 Trample Haze counter guy that is just a great card anyways. So yeah, I'm kind of speculating a bit here, given that I passed one earlier. Here, again, pack's difficult for me. I'm not super high on the Broodweaver. It's fine, but I don't funnily enough, I just don't know my colors. And maybe I want to be in red. I took this speculatively, and I think the red deck's kind of like this. I think the rummage effect is pretty nice, because a lot of times the red decks, in my experience at least, struggle because they don't have a way to keep up on cards with a lot of the other decks, and I think the rummage effect gives them a little bit of a push to stay in the fight a bit more. So yeah, I like this guy in a lot of red decks. I guess Crawl is pretty good too, but again, I only have this one Horde. At this point, I'm not convinced that black is super open. So I sort of decided to give this one a shot. Here, again, another pack that just pretty tough for me. I think that this Stolen Vitality is a playable card in the aggressive red decks, but it also isn't... it's not something that you want a lot of, because there are a lot of cards that have this effect, and so I think it's a bit more replaceable. And considering that, again, right now I'm thinking I might have a chance to move into red-white, that I just want to pick up playables, because again, I can see a scenario in this draft where I end up really low on playables, and just something that I'm guaranteed to be able to play seems nice. So picking up the Trapper here, and then here, I see that the Neonates Rush wheeled. This card's been a lot better in the format than I expected it to be going in, but I also don't have that much experience playing with it, because I've kind of been avoiding red a little bit. So honestly, I don't know how to gauge this. I have played Blessed Defiance specifically in like some green-white decks and I've liked it a lot as a way to combat some of the like the flyers. Rather than try and deal with them by blocking or killing them, you can just gain some life and win in a race. So yeah, I've been impressed by this card more than I thought I would be as well. But also, I think given that red might be a little more the direction I'm leaning here, I think this might be a mistake. I think maybe I should have taken the Neonates Rush. But yeah, it's kind of tough. I honestly don't know. And then here, so I guess so pick 10, so it was like pack 2, I guess, that had the other Sacred Fire. But it does come back, which is great for me. So now I'm thinking, okay, cool, red-white's open. I'll take this. I'll try and hopefully people open the red-white uncommon. I can pick those up late. And maybe I can try and venture into an aggressive red-white deck, which is actually, I think, something I haven't tried yet this format. Also a nice sign that the Festival Crasher came back. From what I've seen, that's one of the more important 2-drops in the red-white deck. A lot of them are spells based. They want to be casting this and getting damage in with it. And this guy, I don't know, not too exciting, but it is red, so kind of an indication. A lot of red and green cards here. Anyway, so take the Sacred Fire. Here, given that I think I'm moving into red, then there is this Abandon the Post. Again, I think it's playable in some of the more aggressive versions, and so I picked it up. I do notice that there's, white cards missing, which is somewhat troubling. My curve is pretty embarrassing right now. I have a Lunarch Veteran and a Trapper, and presumably I'm not playing the Sifters, and I have just like actual nothing. So there's a lot this deck needs to try and get there. So again, kind of a tough one. Here, at this point, again, I'm going to pick up the Raised Effigy. I think if you're attacking, this card does a good job at what you want it to do. It's cheap enough that, you can still double spell that turn. You can, it allows you to just turn your creature sideways and get it done, which is, I think, what a lot of the decks want to do if they're like a low to the ground red-white. Here, picking up Tapping at the Window over Howl. Again, I didn't think this pick was very important. There are versions of decks that I think can play Tapping at the Window, specifically if you have very high impact cards that you want to dig for. Let's say I were to open like a Huntmaster in pack 2, having access to this is good for me, whereas this is a bit, I guess they're both pretty narrow actually, but yeah, so that was just the thought here. And then just, last pick, Combat Trick. Here was pretty interesting. So Dawnguard's great, and then Stormseeker also great, I think. Here I don't actually know which one is like better. Like if it were pick one, I think this is certainly the flashier one, the Stormseeker, but I don't know, Dawnguard's really good. I'm not 100% confident either way. But here, I think, given that I still am not 100% locked in on my colors, I'm more likely to be in red than white if I'm not in both. And so I went with the Stormseeker just because I think I'm more likely to be able to play it when I don't necessarily know that I'm going to be white, even though I have these Sacred Fires here. And then this pick was pretty tough for me, in that, like, I don't know, there's not that much in red and white, which is unfortunate. It's not like it's being cut as just pick 2, so there's just no red and white cards here that I'm interested in. And then, so there's this Clear Shot, and I mean, this is the best card I think in the pack, maybe in contention with the Scab if I was in blue-black, but I'm really far from that. But again, at the moment I'm thinking I'm going to be red-white, which I think maybe might have been a misevaluation on my part. A lot of the white cards weren't coming around in pack 1. I saw very little of them aside from just the Sacred Fires, specifically in this color pair. And so the idea was I wanted to take the Evolving Wilds. I figured that both Clear Shot and Sacred Fires are potentially splashable cards, so if I move into green, then I might get some farmers and can play the Sacred Fires, or if I'm not in green and I want it, I have access to a Clear Shot, which is a good removal spell. Maybe I don't play it anyways, but I ended up taking the Wilds here, which, yeah, I don't actually know about this pick very well. And then to here, so this is kind of sad. I'm actually not that high on the Perforator. I think it kind of gets embarrassed by like Larder Zombie or like the Anglers and stuff. There's a lot of cards that don't make this look very good. But again, for curve purposes, I think I'm going to be red at this point. I don't know for sure what my other color is, and I have actual no 2-drops, and I have a veteran and a trapper, and that's it. So yeah, I think this is just kind of a necessity kind of pick, given that I don't know my colors. I think I'm red, and I need to start picking up creatures at some point, given how few of them I currently have. Also, to note, right, there's some green cards here. There's a sighting, there's a mentor, and I noticed that there was an unnatural moonrise. It's not something I really thought too much about at the time, but I saw that it was there. So one thing I liked when I'm drafting, if I notice cards that serve a unique role in certain decks, sometimes it's nice to take note of them. So like a lot of times in my experience, the green-red deck, its biggest problem is that it runs out of resources, and there's a lot of good removal in the set. And so this is one way to combat it. I know it's not a great way to combat it, like, go tapping for what's essentially like a kind of a combat trick in your main pre-combat main phase and hoping it works is a little suspicious, but it does solve a lot of the problems that the werewolf deck can have, in that it pushes damage through from the trample, and it creates value because it cycles itself, and then you can flash it back for another card or some more damage. So yeah, I kind of like to take note of cards like this when I see them, just to know that they exist at the table. Then moving on. And again, this is looking really bad for me. I'm starting to notice that green is open a bit, but I don't know if I can move away from these fires quite yet. White has been really closed, and Farmer is probably, I think, the best card here. I guess Startle's pretty good too, but again, I'm so far from blue, I'm just not really concerned with it. So I'm just taking the creature, the 4-drop. I know it's not a good one, but I think, all right, cool. And this is where I'm starting to think, all right, maybe I end up in green-red, which I typically have been avoiding like the plague, so to speak. But the thought's there at least. And yeah, so picking this guy up. Getting here, Festival Crashers, good red 2-drop. Again, I'm still kind of skewing towards red because I want to make sure that I'm there on playables. Given that I still don't know if I'm red-white or red-green. I'm kind of just in between, and so I just want to take something that I know I'll play. I know it's less exciting in like red-green, maybe you don't have a lot of spells, but I think maybe it's still good enough, and again, I just need 2-drops. So like, even though that, for example, this is clearly a better 2-drop if I'm, say, in like red-green, the fail scenario of I draft this and then I end up not green and I just don't have a 2-drop, it is too bad for me to take it, even if I think I might be headed that direction. So here I take the Festival Crasher. And then so here, okay, so there's actually no red cards in the pack except for the Moonrise. There's this thing, which again, I'm not really looking to play. And so here I noticed that there have been a couple Moonrises that I've already passed already. And so here I'm thinking, okay, I see this pick 6, and it's actually similar logic to the Sacred Fire from pack 1, right? The idea that if this card is going around the table later in picks, then I'm more likely to see the ones that I saw before come back. Again, I don't know that that's good reasoning, but that was my thought process, and given that I'm not giving up too much for it, I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll take this speculative pick, and maybe I end up in some kind of werewolf deck, which, again, not excited about, but we'll see. Here, again, no white, and I'm starting to think that, at this point, that I'm just not white. I didn't pass any white pack 1, and then I didn't get past any white pack 2, so it's not looking so good here. I'll just take the solid green card and sort of see where this leads. Pick 8. So now I see, okay, cool, there's a white card, not by any means like a signal or anything, a couple white cards, but I'll take this one. I think that if I end up in the werewolf deck, not because it's a wolf, but rather because it gives me a way to push damage, and it's a 2-drop I need, and it allows me to use my mana on my turn for something that isn't casting a spell, which means that if I'm on the werewolf plan, then I can more reliably flip them, which I think, if I end up there, is going to be the main way that I end up winning games. And again, for the reasons I mentioned earlier, I'm not super high on the Perforator, so I would take the Wolf here. So here, this one from pack 1 does come back, which at the time I didn't really think too much about because I didn't think I was going to end up in green-red, but seeing as where I'm at here, I'm going to pick it up, and I think this is the point where I decided, all right, I guess I'm in green-red. So then picking up the Moonrise here, and it does make me hopeful that the second one I saw is going to come back too. Here, Burdenmire, I think, given that I might be in green-red werewolves, is decent. Like, the flip side is a good body, and I think it also solves the problem that some of the green decks have, in that, when you can try and race on the ground, but if they're better in the air and then they just have like a removal spell at the end, like a revenge or something, in order to flip the race, then you lose. But being able to consistently block, say, like a Falcon Abomination throughout the first several turns of the game when you get established, and then you can win the race, I think this serves that role in that deck. So it's, a decent card given where we're at, I think. And I'm pretty happy to pick it up this late, given that I could use some creatures, and werewolves are kind of a bonus for me at this point. Here we pick up the second one. So yeah, I'm kind of sold here. Even over like a good 4-drop here, I don't think I'm going to need all the 4-drops. And this card, I think, is, again, the role that it has is pretty important in the deck. It's much less replaceable than something like Shadow Beast Sighting, I think. So I'm going here. Here, pick up a raise. In this pack, not too much I'm interested in. And then, random green card and playable green card, which is nice for the last pick. So here, this was kind of an interesting one. The Shadow Beast Sighting, I think, is probably the best card in my colors here. Objectively speaking, let's say I was pack 1. I mean, I guess I wouldn't be picking this, but let's say I was pack 1 and choosing between the cards within my colors, right? I think that Shadow Beast Sighting is better than Revelation. But in hindsight, I think I might have wanted to take this. Being able to pass the turn and still use your mana, I think, is going to be pretty important for the werewolves decks. And it also serves that kind of role where the green-red deck can very easily just kind of run out of gas, and giving you something to do with your mana that also can help you refill if you draw, an extra land or something. I think that has value, even though it doesn't at face value seem like a quote-unquote aggressive card. I think you probably want one of these. And so yeah, given that I already have, decent number of 4-drops here, I think I actually probably should have taken it. Here, bunch of red cards again. So I think this is a pretty solid 4-drop werewolf, and I think I'm willing to play it over like a Shadow Beast Sighting, given that I have 2 ways to make it night instant speed, and my deck isn't probably winning unless I'm pushing through damage, so I think having a difficult to block creature is pretty nice. And then here again, Neonate's Rush, better than it looks, I think, and Immolation is playable, and this card I actually am hoping to wheel. I might be the first time I've played it in the format, actually, but given that I can, I think, somewhat reliably make it night in this deck, a 4/4 Trampler isn't irrelevant, and again, pushing damage, I think, is going to be the name of the game for this deck. It's not winning like long grindy games, most likely you just need to get them dead. So here, Howl the Hunt. So this is interesting in that I already have 2 kind of ways to push damage in the Raise the Effigy. But I think, and when I do the deck building, I think I end up cutting the effigies. But the idea for Howl is similar to I think that the 3-mana red card that you discard draw to. The idea being that it gives you something to do with your mana. So like, I was considering certain lines of play. For example, like imagine your opponent like passes turn 3 with like flip the switch up. You get an attack in, then you just pass the turn. Their turn 4, they can't just do nothing, right? So maybe they play like an organ hoarder. Then you flash this in, you get 1 big attack in and develop the board more. Then their turn 5, maybe they have to spend like revenge or something, dealing with your now big threat. And yeah, you get 2 for 1, but I think pushing the damage for it is is relevant, and the idea that you can play the again leave this up and play instant speed, and occasionally use it as a combat trick, kill a creature, and then have just a big thing left over. I think I like this better than Raise in this kind of deck, given the whole like day-night dynamic. So here, again, Slash is great in red decks, right? You're gonna want to be playing it, but I think I would like good 2-drops, and specifically 2-drop werewolves have potential to steal games. So I like drafting cards that have high upside, or they can really punish your opponent for stumbling when your draft is kind of either like unfocused, or if it's like not something you think is going to be a reliably great deck. If you were to play 100 matches with it and you don't think you're going to win a bunch of the majority of them, then having a higher variance card has some value, because it allows you to maybe like spike a game or two that you otherwise wouldn't have if you didn't have just this turn 2 3/3 that's ramping you kind of thing on some games. So that said, I also need some 2-drops, right? I think at the moment I'm 1 2 3 4 4 of them. So yeah, I definitely need the early creature anyways. So I'm taking this over the Slash. And here, fortunate enough to pick up another 2-drop. Quick spell count. Again, I don't know that I'm playing these, but it does actually, the Festival Crasher does actually play well with the Moonrise. It turns into a 4-power trample attacker. Often can get a point through, and it's difficult for opponents to block this because of the fact that like you could just have another spell and then they could be maybe in a tough spot. And I need the 2-drop, so pick this one up. And then here, again, Birded Mire, for the same reasons I picked the last one, I'm picking this one. I need some creatures. It's 3-drop werewolf, and it helps me deal with the flying situation, so got this. Here, this thing comes back, pick 7, not comes back, but rather I get to pick one of these up, which is nice. Here I actually considered the wolf as well, which, again, going through an account now, I think since I've picked up a few more, I'm at 6 2-drops now, which is acceptable. It's not, I might want one more, but I can live with 6. And I think that the trample on this is more on plan with the game plan. Like I just need to be able to get 28 points of damage through and end the game before things, I get organ hoarded and disturbed to death. So yeah, as much as this card isn't quote unquote a good card, I think it's on plan here. Here, I wasn't sure. I don't think that I'm going to play a second of these guys in here. I honestly didn't put that much thought into if I'm going to have Coven or how easy it's going to be to activate all that stuff. But I figured I already have one if I want it. This is a decent sideboard card against the Flyers. I don't know if I'm going to play it or not because I already have the 2 Admirers, and I'd prefer to have the Werewolves given the Night synergies. But I figured, this is not bad in the sideboard, and so I just ended up taking this. Here, this came back, so I got really fortunate here. Again, there's no way I'm playing 3 of the Sightings, so I'm pretty... And I think I could have known that at the time too, so I'm pretty sure I should have picked this the first time around, but I'm happy to pick it up here. So here, this is kind of interesting. I have all these red cards, and honestly, this pack, I don't really know that well what's best. So the Howl the Hunt is, again, like I said, I think I like it better than the Raise for the reasons that I mentioned. And I kind of like how this plays out. I know a lot of people, at least recently for me, have been playing Flip the Switch, and I like the idea of being able to tax people's mana and punish them for playing that card. If I can play instant speed reliably enough to make it so that I can apply pressure when they leave their mana up, I mean, that to me is a way that I can, I can win games. So I'm going to take this, even though, like we mentioned, this card is on plan, but I also at this point already have 4 3-drops. And I'm happy with that. Like, I don't think I need this card. So yeah, the Howl here. Here, this is a 5-drop. I think that I'm more, I think I like more than the Cavalry, rather, that, again, I hadn't put too much thought really into how often I'm going to have Coven here, but they're both 5-power tramplers. This one has the potential to be slightly larger, and it isn't reliant on me having Coven. I don't much care that this one has 1 more toughness. I just want to be able to trample through as much damage as I can, as consistently as I can. So again, if I'm playing a 5-drop, it's going to be this and not this, I think. Here, I didn't really know if this pick mattered. I don't think I'm playing a second Revelation, and I also didn't think I was playing another Dread Knight. I don't know, maybe I should have taken this if I end up sideboarding into like a matchup that's a little more maybe grindy or where I want some top end. But even then, yeah, I don't know. I didn't really think this pick mattered that much, and I don't think I put too much into it at the time. Here I'm happy to pick this up. It's playable, and I think it ended up making the deck. So this was a nice pickup. And then here I'm not playing a second one of these, but yeah, okay. So this is what the deck looks like. So here we got, I think, 6 2-drops, and then some of the Moonrises, some of the Werewolves here, removal spell, couple tricks, and then again some spells for the Festival Crasher synergies. And again, notice that aside from these, my non-creature spells here, of all of the 3-drop non-creature spells can be played at instant speed to some effect. And so this was, again, kind of the plan of the deck, so that even without these, I have a means of turning it to night. And again, I can punish my opponents for keeping mana up. And so again, it kind of gives me another game plan that I can use to win the game, given that I'm in an archetype that historically isn't the best relative to the format. And so then here, we ended up with some 4-drops. Again, I cut 1 sighting, I think, and the Broodweaver. The Broodweaver, again, well, I like having some answers to flyers sometimes. I figured between the 2 Bird Admirers and Neonate's Rush and the Clear Shot, that is hopefully good enough. And then I have some ways to push trample damage in a race, so I was hoping I can get there. And I also considered if I wanted to splash the Sacred Fires. I think the fact that a lot of my cards, especially early cards, need green-red, means that I want my mana to just be as consistent as possible. I don't think that the long game of like casting a Sacred Fire and hoping to get to the point where I can flash it back is really a long-term plan I'm interested in. I'm not really like a burn deck. I'm more just like a creature deck, and then I just turn them sideways, hopefully give them some trample, and try and kill them before I get outvalued. So I decided that the splash was not worth it. And yeah, so this is where I ended up. The deck did end up going 3-0. I'll include a link to the games if anyone's interested to look at them. I'm not going to go through them here. But yeah, I hope it was interesting. And if you guys have any questions or comments, because again, I'm sure I made plenty of mistakes here myself, feel free to let me know. And yeah, so that's it. Thanks.